Our next presenter, and this is, if you notice, the theme is kind of going to be very similar. That's why we have them together, is Rabbi Herschel Moskoff, who is a film producer and writer. Mr. Moskoff, Remmy Award-winning film producer and writer of the ARK report, is a Canadian-born research analyst. His intense interest in biblical archaeology and politics has now made him a prolific contributor to several Israeli publications, an internationally acclaimed expert on the Ark of the Covenant and other hidden temple artifacts. Now, besides that, I will also add that Mr. Moskoff has just arrived from being in the United Nations, presenting some interesting conflict. That's the word in English. Conflict resolution concerning Israel. The Temple Mount, I'm assuming as well, you probably talked about, and so on. Unfortunately, we don't have time at the convention to have more time for both of these guys, but I'm telling you, you want to connect with them and check out the research because there's heaps of information.
Shalom Aleichem. First, thank you, Doron. It's a pleasure, obviously, to be here, and very special. Speaking with everybody upstairs in the cafeteria. I'm Harry Moskoff, a.k.a. Rabbi Hirschel Moskoff, and my work, as Doron was saying, has to do with the tunnels of the Temple Mount, the placement of the Ark and other holy vessels in Jerusalem, where they ended up. And politically, I'm also an investigative journalist, writing for the Jerusalem Post, Times of Israel, and Breaking Israel News, sorry, for Tully. So it's very important work that now the timing of a convention like this is absolutely crucial, and thanks to all of you really for showing up, for coming. It's a really a great show of support for Israel about this crucial issue about the Temple Mount, and as Mr. Barfield was saying before me, everything that's associated with it, the temple vessels, where they are, etc. We're going to show actually a little video, a short video in a couple of minutes, about that and the whole geopolitical scenario revolving the Temple Mount, which is something I'm very much, I write for and I'm very much involved with right now. One of the things that I've been doing lately as an investigative archaeologist is I was asked by a working group that's connected to the Trump administration and the ambassador, a think tank, that has to do with the final status for the Temple Mount. I was asked to speak, as Doron was mentioning, a couple of weeks ago at Queen's College in New York and also the UN about what to do with the Temple Mount in a final status situation vis-a-vis the peace plan. Now, whether you love him or hate him, President Trump, and I know, it's like a huge issue, obviously, everywhere. Although here in Israel, we sort of love him, basically. But the whole issue is the rollout of the plan and the people that are involved and how that's going to affect the final status of Jerusalem, and in a way that people can accept, the right-wing people can accept, the religious can accept. Of course, the Christian support, everybody out there, everybody here, is very much appreciated. And also, something that the Palestinians, the Muslims can accept, a solution. This is one of the things we've been working on for a couple of months. And I'm proud to say we are very, very close to actually establishing something that will really work. In order to do that, we have to, and this is one of the things I spoke about an alternative solution where all of us can work together. One of the main issues is, of course, the Temple Mount and how that fits in. They asked me to come and participate because I am an author of, here it is, the ARK report, available outside. And somebody who really knows the halachic, according to Jewish law, the ramifications of where to put a different temple, where to put a place where everybody can pray. The idea, and you may hear it here first, but don't necessarily quote me on it, but Trump does consider himself, President Trump, as a builder primarily. Trump Tower, of course, Trump University, Trump hotels, etc., etc. And what he would like to do, rumor has it, is also sort of put his name on something that's going to be very big here in Jerusalem. Mainly something to the effect of the World Center for Prayer, Trump World Center for Prayer type of thing. And although that may be a little bit, let's say, I don't like leaking it out or anything, but this is something that he really would like to do, like Cyrus, like those coins that you saw. I don't know if everyone was here for that, when those coins were shown before, about they had King Cyrus and they had Trump. It's kind of an interesting, odd type of correlation, but still very interesting. So he does consider himself that way, and he really wants to work towards this type of scenario where everybody can really go up there to Har HaBayit, to the Temple Mount, and pray and worship Hashem, worship God. And I think that's what we're all here for. Thank God we're all here, and it's a great honor. And I think that what everybody represents, what we represent, coming to a convention, a conference like this, where the actual, the whole essence of it is the Temple Mount. I think that everybody here wants to draw close to God, like we were saying before, and that's why we're here, and that's what originally drew me to the whole Temple Mount, the research I did, and where the Ark is, and where the Makom HaMikdash, which is the placement of the temples on the Temple Mount, what really brought me there, and all of you, I think, as well, is just this will to get close to God. And where do you do that? The Temple Mount. That makes sense for everybody, for all human beings. So I did speak about this, and it was, I think, very well received, also by the UN in terms of a working paper, what we could do to work together with the Palestinians and get this thing going. Now, one of the things that was suggested at that meeting and different meetings, etc., and at the conference, was having a Jewish place for prayer as well. In fact, I wrote an article for the J-Post, Jerusalem Post, and Breaking Israel News about this. There were actually 6 synagogues, believe it or not, on the Temple Mount since the destruction in 70 AD. 6 synagogues since then. The last one was about 1,000 years ago, but still, that really worked well. And no one got in the way of each other, the Muslims and the Jews, etc. That was actually something workable, something on the corridor, even today, this northeastern corridor. And one of the chief rabbis, the older chief rabbi of Mordechai Eliyahu, blessed memory, he actually had plans to build a small synagogue on the southeastern corner of the Temple Mount, which was very interesting. He really did have that. He brought it to the Knesset, to the Israeli parliament, and it was really something that was being considered. I think that today it's a lot, it's obviously complicated, etc. Nobody wants to start, World War III, heaven forbid. In fact, the opposite. But it is something that is being discussed, is this aspect, this idea of having a place where all people could go. And like we say, like it says in Yirmiyahu, in Jeremiah, it says that in Hebrew, it says, Beiti yeh beit tefillah, Yekareh beit tefillah, that my house should be a house of prayer for all the nations, and that'll be the third temple. Anarina actually had a picture of that earlier. But everyone will be able to go to this spot eventually. Now, that's part of the importance to everybody. And actually, by the way, it's election season all of a sudden. Everything in Israel is unpredictable, as I'm sure you're finding out. And we're now approaching an election time, which means those of you who do go up to Har HaBayit, to ascending the Temple Mount, and I think Doron is going to have a tour. He's great, Let's hear it for Doron. Great job, really. So if you want to go up with him, he's also a great, you'll be safe with him, security-wise. So, and otherwise, so basically, those who do go up, I think that if we want to make this, practically speaking, an issue in the elections, during Hanukkah right now, it is actually a good time. Those are not advocating necessarily going up there, but, maybe unofficially perhaps. But if you really want to go up there, and it is a very special experience, it's really like being on a different plane. It's very surreal, an incredible experience. And to go up there and, say your little under your breath prayer. But those who do go up, in order to make a difference in the election season, I think that to make it an issue, it is a good idea now to go up, those who do ascend, and show your presence there, Jew and non-Jew alike. Very important. And by the way, Zion, all these different organizations align with Zion, cry for Zion, of course, comes from the word Zion, as I'm sure you know. But the word Zion itself, I should mention, is actually referring to the place of the originally in the Torah and the Bible. Originally, it refers to the place of the Holy of Holies, where the Ark was, and where the Torah says, "Kibit Zion Tetzei Torah, Udvar Hashem Yerushalayim." Like Doron was saying, that from Zion comes out the Torah in the Ark, the scrolls that were held in the Ark in the Kodesh Kodashim, in the Holy of Holies. That's really the name of Har Habayit, of the Temple Mount. The essence of Zion really refers to the Holy of Holies. And then later on it was, and that's also where the Sanhedrin was, where the Torah came out of. Then later on it came to refer to other things, including Mount Zion, of course, which is where King David is buried, and other kings, by the way. So that's an interesting note. The other thing is, I've been asked to speak about one of the things that I specialize in is where the Ark of the Covenant is, why it's there, etc. Now, of course, only Eliyahu Navi, Elijah the prophet, really knows. But there are many theories. One, like Mr. Barfield said, of course, Qumran and Vendell Jones had also a similar theory. Ethiopia, so there's articles written about Ethiopia, etc. What's there, what isn't there. Now, there is a replica there, but the Ark itself, according to my research and many Torah sources, is actually underneath the Temple Mount, including what it says on the Rambam, Maimonides, about 4 or 5 stories down, about 10 to 15 meters down, just to the southwest, actually, of the Dome of the Rock. And that's proven in my book through various, I'd say mostly Torah sources, Midrashic, Talmudic sources, and also archaeology, recent archaeological finds in the city of David. Actually, the city of David approached me a while ago, about a year ago, to discuss this phenomenon of that was mentioned earlier, where many of the tourists, thousands of tourists that come each year to the city of David, are asking, show me where the temple was, according to this new theory that's come out in the Christian world. And people are convinced that, for some reason, I guess it's in terms of scriptural context, without really looking deeper, that the temples were there. I guarantee you, they weren't there. They were on the Temple Mount. It's called the Temple Mount for a reason. And we have as much proof as you want, of course, in my book and elsewhere. But I was asked to say that, all of the research that we've done is really, it's very important that people find out the context of these verses that are mentioned by these people that claim that the temples were on the side of the mountain. And it's great that a conference like this can address that issue. And people like me can come and say and answer your questions and say, look, this is the reason why the temples were up here, and this is the reason why it's, to the southwest of the Dome of the Rock, and what is this and what is that. The Dome of the Rock actually was built on the Hadrian temple for Jupiter after the destruction in 70 AD of the Herodian Jewish temple. And then it's in conjunction with the, which is really a basilica, now the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the way they coordinate to each other, the way they're actually positioned, which is similar to a structure in Lebanon. It's the Dome of the Rock itself is actually, I think, resembles more a Byzantine church than a mosque, actually. The way it doesn't face Mecca, like all mosques do, etc. There's definitely something else going on there. And also how the Dome of the Rock was believed to be the place of the temple. That's conventional opinion, when it's actually, according to this, and according to Rav David Lau, who's the chief rabbi of Israel, who endorses this theory, my theory, and Rav Moshe Sternbach, who's the head of the judicial court in Jerusalem, also endorses this theory, amongst others now, that actually the Dome of the Rock was not the place of the temple, close by, still on the Temple Mount, but and the reasons why people became to think that. Now, there are theories, it's a theory, but it's very important to know that no matter which theory you believe in, the temple itself was and will be on the Temple Mount itself. Okay, We're going to see a film in a couple minutes, basically outlining the geopolitical scenario. I worked on it with Mike Huckabee, who's a good friend of mine, and visits Israel quite a bit. And it also, talks about where the temple vessels ended up. And I think one of the issues that we have to deal with finding these temple vessels, whether it's in Qumran or under the Temple Mount, like that video earlier about Rabbi Goren, and that is one of there's actually 50 tunnels, 50, that are known tunnels under the Temple Mount today, which I delineate here in the book, etc. And 4 of them may lead to where the Ark is actually buried. One of them was shown up here, which has to do with Warren's Gate. Has anybody actually been to the Western Wall tunnels? Yes? Oh, awesome. Cool. Great. All right, that's really great, because there's a massive stone there, 570 tons, a huge stone, which is, you guys know what I'm talking about? Every tour says it. It's huge, and it's really miraculous that it went there, how they got it there. One of the reasons why it's there is because it's there to protect something behind it. Without getting into details, the chief archaeologist, Dr. Dan Bahat, who's a fellow Torontonian, conducted research a couple of years ago with the University of Calgary and Nebraska, etc. And they had special electromagnetic techniques and sonar, etc., to find out what's behind the wall, the Western Wall. And one of the things they found was behind that stone is an actual open space, which he called a storage space, that may be connected to something that may be hidden there a little bit further, a little bit lower, but essentially close to that area. And Warren's Gate itself leads to a cistern. There's a cistern behind it, cistern number 30, I believe, as Sir Charles Warren delineated about 150 years ago. So there are cisterns, there are tunnels under there, and there are caves nearby, definitely, that are incredibly important, incredibly worth exploring. I'm totally into this, as you can see. And it's one of them, actually, one of these tunnels goes 18 miles, like it says in Divrei Yamim, which is Chronicles. The last king, Tzidkiyahu, King Tzidkiyahu actually escaped during this tunnel. It's an 18-mile long tunnel to the plains of Jericho, which many say correspond to Qumran. And that he actually, when he was escaping at the destruction of the first temple, King Solomon's temple, he actually went under there, and it says his story, and he was found, and there was a deer, and he was found by the Babylonians and Nebuchadnezzar, etc. But the fact is, there is a theory that says that he brought a lot of the vessels out through that tunnel, and it exits in Qumran, which is connected to the Copper Scrolls, which is also mentioned in the film here and there. At any rate, it is a huge issue that's coming out now. I also have an excavation coming up. You can follow on my website. I don't know if I should just a blatant plug for it, but it's harryhmoskoff.net. At any rate, we do have an excavation coming up in Jerusalem that has to do with the whereabouts of these temple vessels, God willing. We have all the permits, etc., and we also found a tunnel underneath the Temple Mount where the priests, my own ancestors, actually went through, like it says in the Talmud, when they had an impurity, they went through this tunnel, and it exited on the south side where the Hulda gates are, double and triple gates, and you can see that it's way off. Definitely don't go there. Don't even try to go there. But suffice to say that the exit really is there into a ritual bath, and where the Kohanim, the priests, used to go. That's one incredible tunnel that was found actually in 1982 by an archaeologist, Meir Ben-Dov. You can read about that in his book, Shadow of the Temple. But it really is an unbelievable find that exists today, and of course highly secured, but very, very important that these things are being found, and we really are at the end, in my opinion, right before Mashiach. We're all waiting for the Messiah to come, and he will soon, God willing. And this is one thing that's extremely important, and I think that even the Arabs realize this, even the Muslims realize that things are coming to an end, things are coming to a closure, and that's why we can have a conference like this with everybody involved, and a peace plan, I guess you could say, that people may think that actually might work. Now, one of the things that I'll mention about this peace plan is that they really want to make Har HaBayit, they want to make the Temple Mount into a place where all people could go, where Muslims can feel comfortable with the Jews in their area, and no one will infringe on anyone else. And they call it the Holy Basin. They want certain things they want to internationalize, etc. The way I want to see it happen, the way it will happen eventually, will be like it says in Yechezkel, in the prophet Ezekiel, I think it's chapter 40, Mem to Mem Gimel in Hebrew. But he talks about, of course, the third temple, and that'll be a huge, huge temple, much, much larger than the current Temple Mount size. And we're going to see some great, great, miraculous things happen. We really have a merit, I think, to live in this generation. No question, as hard as it may be, and birth pangs of Mashiach, like they say, of the birth pangs of before the Messiah comes, there are a lot of troubles. Before great light, there's usually great darkness. In fact, it says, it's a fact that before the dawn, the darkest time of the night is right before the dawn. So keep that in mind. We're hanging in there. And one of the things that I think that I'll just mention before showing the film is, I have a little bit of time, is one of the main things that we're dealing with is who will own archaeology. Say we find this stuff. Say we find the Qumran, the vessels in Qumran, which will happen one day, hopefully soon. And, say we find what's under Har HaBayit. It says in the Gemara, in the Talmud, that the vessels of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle, are hidden in the underneath the Temple Mount, as well as the Ark. But that's one of the things that, there are different theories, but the curtains, it says, and the wooden blocks, the wooden boards for the tabernacle are actually hidden also in the Temple Mount. All of these things are going to come to the surface. And I've been sort of researching and, I don't say chasing, but Indiana Jones style, but the bottom line is that these facts are coming out, and these vessels really do exist today. They really do. The Ark itself is there for 2,700 years in the same place, in a chamber. So, when these things do come out, the question is, who will own it? And I say that at the end of the film. Who's going to own it? Where will it be found? Is it going to be on one side of the red line, one side of the green line? And everyone believes and knows it belongs to Israel. But within Israel, we don't, there's also infighting, unfortunately. Like they say, 2 Jews, 3 opinions, So that's something that we have to grapple with. Really, once these things are found, who will own it? Where will they go before the temple is created? Smithsonian Museum for the Ark or something. Who knows? We want it to be in the temple, which it will end up. However, we all have to really want it. Everybody here, it's sort of like preaching to the converted in a way. Everybody here wants it just by nature of the fact that you're here, and me included. But we have to get it out there, and one of the ways of doing that is to make it an election issue, show your love for Har HaBayit, for the Temple Mount, go up there and write about it, write it to your congressman, write to your senator. I'm losing my voice over here. But mainly in Israel over here, we have to support some of the things that are being done here. And there are a lot of archaeological discoveries happening. The Chakra, the Akra, was recently found about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, in the city of David, which is a Greek fortress made by Antiochus, ironically, Hanukkah infamous Antiochus, the Greek king, which the Maccabees defeated, thank God. So he built this really monstrous fortress, which it says was a real thorn for all the Jews. It actually was sitting in the southern slope of Ir David, of the city of David, and overlooked in order to supervise what's happening in the temple complex. The fact that it was found where it was found, and knowing the height of it, proves that actually the temple was a little bit further to the south, and not actually where the dome is, which, by the way, if you're going with Daron, it actually affects, if you're Jewish, it does affect where you go. You hang a little more to the south side. I think all people are able to move around pretty much. Daron knows where to go. So bottom line is that it does have implications all these discoveries to what we do today and how the future is going to look. I think that we're pretty much ready for the film. If anybody has any questions, of course, I'm around. I think there's a panel at 6:45 also that I'm taking part of with respect to biblical archaeology. But yeah, let's see if we could have the film. I'll try to speak a little bit in between, maybe.
What we have in the Middle East is a Palestinian Authority regime that doesn't even believe that Israel has a right to exist, that will not even put the geographical borders of Israel on its maps. Every time I take a big group to Israel, one of the things I like to do is to get one of the Palestinian maps that I can get in the old city. I love to unfold it, and I'll ask the people who are with me, where's Israel on the map? They'll look and they'll look, and I'll say, can you find Israel on the map? The answer is no, they can't find it. And I ask them why. They say, I don't know. I said, because the people who built this map, they don't believe there is such a thing as Israel.
They claim we have no history here, that the temples never existed. But what if I were to tell you where the secret location of the temple treasures, King Solomon's treasures, are actually located? What would happen then? No one has ever cracked the code. No one has ever seen the map. Until now. There's a fascinating account from 100 years ago about a Jewish farmer in the Jerusalem area who was working on his land. Suddenly, he fell into a deep cave. When he got himself together, he saw an amazing collection of gold temple vessels and coins appearing in the light. The farmer realized he had discovered King Solomon's temple treasures, hidden on his very own property. He quickly covered up the entrance to the pit and then created a map of its location. The farmer traveled to America and entrusted the secret map to Rabbi Herman of New York. After verifying the story, he sent it to the famous sage, the Chafetz Chaim in Poland, about what to do with these holy temple treasures. Should he take them out and reveal them to the world? The sage responded that we weren't ready for these holy artifacts yet, and destroyed the map. Many years passed, and the secret location of the cave was all but forgotten. Eventually, the farmer died, and Rabbi Herman suddenly remembered the story and the secret location of the farm and the cave. The clues and coordinates that are on that very map have been passed on to this day, and the time is arriving to finally reveal them.
This is part of what we're dealing with today, finding these treasures.
People love a good story, and the Palestinian narrative is a great story. The Palestinians love media, and their story is that there never was an Israel,
This has to do with the
or
UN.
a temple for that matter. They use this propaganda to fuel their
denies
constant
all Jewish
violence
claims
to try and take ownership
to Jerusalem
over
and the
ancient
Temple
Jewish
Mount.
holy sites as their own. Why are the brave soldiers of the IDF prepared to lay down their lives on a daily basis to protect these holy sites? What's the point? Just to be given back and destroyed by the Palestinian Arabs?
What irritates me more than anything else is you'll hear Palestinian leader after Palestinian leader say that they don't recognize any Jewish claim to the Temple Mount at all.
And Arafat himself is on record claiming that the Jews have gotten, there was no such thing as a Jewish temple in Jerusalem, despite the fact that it's recognized in the Quran.
If there was no Israel and no temples, then why have there been so many archaeological discoveries that prove the exact opposite, especially recently on the southern slope of the Temple Mount?
You cannot say that there are no remains and then at the same time prevent any excavations. Let me excavate at the Temple Mount and I'll show you the proof.
How do you negotiate with people who don't think you're there? How do you make concessions how do you have agreement with people who do not believe you have the right to breathe your next breath?
This is the challenge of the peace process.
Israel saw another surge in terror attacks this morning.
They're starting here with the Jews who live in the Middle East. And why they do not like us? Because they look at us, a democracy. They look at the values where we have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and they don't like what they see.
I can't bring myself to believe that we will be sort of driven back into the dark ages of people being slaughtered. I can't see this, in modern day, I can't see this happening.
I have to make sure that the future of the Jewish state is safe and sound. That's my one goal. And I would like to be remembered as the protector of Israel. That's enough for me. Protector of Israel.
So why is there such an obsession to either find or deny the existence of these temple vessels? What is so significant about their discovery that the Arab media, the left, and even the CIA had an agenda to track excavations in Qumran and keep it all hidden there?
Why isn't the international community up in arms? Why do they seem to be not taking this seriously?
I believe that uncovering that farmer's cave now would seriously affect the sovereignty of Jerusalem and the Temple Mount, shifting the status quo permanently in favor of Israel.
Every archaeological find is important, and I absolutely believe in archaeology. I'm fascinated by it and have been my whole life. Things like the Dead Sea Scrolls, changed the whole way that people thought about Israel and the Bible and the world. And I think that was a real game changer. We
are facing part of the stronghold that used to house the upper part of the city of David in the time of Antiochus IV.
One of the great things about archaeology is that it's never controverted a biblical truth. It's always affirmed it. Archaeology is one of the best friends truth ever will have.
As it says in the Copper Scrolls, the temple treasures were ordered to be placed in that cave by the prophets before the destruction of Jerusalem almost 3,000 years ago. We now know where that farm is located today. The clues and the secret map are all here, and the path lies before us. The solution to stopping the terrorism and guaranteeing the future of Israel lies on that map and revealing what's in that cave. But who will be the one to actually go in after it?
Archaeology
The Chief Rabbi of Israel? The Israeli Antiquities Authority? The Jordanian Waqf? The Prime Minister? What about the CIA? Or the Pope? Or maybe, just maybe, it's up to you.
That's each one of us. Thank you.